I am Dr. ADAOHA Okwosa, also known popularly as Dr. Ada Okwosa. I am currently a retired Federal Permanent Secretary, but in my career of 35 years in the public service, I started first with academics in lecturer in sociology and politics and government, and I rose to the rank of associate professor. From there, I went into the Federal Civil Service, retired from there as a permanent secretary, and then was appointed as the first commissioner representing Nigeria at the Economic Community for West African States, ECOWAS, the commission. And from there, I am now a federal pensioner, proudly so. It means that you have to have a very strong character. It's a strong character, strong personality. Doesn't mean that you're aggressive or you're a bully or that you're domineering, but you have to have the characteristics of knowing exactly what you want, where you're going, and having a belief in your own self-conviction, convinced of your values. You also have the courage of those convictions and a strong will to make it, and to be able to be resilient and adjust into various situations, and also to be able to handle challenges as they come along without giving up and without breaking down. Well, what I think perhaps the most motivating factor for me was growing up with a strong civic consciousness and always wanting to serve people and solve their problems. I remember as a young girl, my mother told me the story of how in the village where I come from in Imo State, Nkwere, a local man had twins. His profession was digging latrines, and suddenly he has twins on him, in addition to 5 other kids. And my mother told me that at the age I was about 6 or 7, I kept disappearing after meals. I would disappear, and they would be looking for me. And they always found me down there in this neighbor's humble home, picking up the kids. And at the same time as picking up those children, some of our breakfast would be disappearing. Tins of milk in those days would be disappearing. So each time there was any food items disappearing from the house, they would say, "Go and find her, where is she? She must have taken them to this family with the twins." So that was it. You know, that story so touched me that it kind of helped to formulate one of my basic principles, wanting to solve problems for other people before anything else. Another thing that motivated me was quite having a lot of admiration for a lot of female iconic figures in my life, starting first of all, of course, with my mother, who was a very active feminist. You know, as early as the 1940s, 50s, after I got into secondary school, I would accompany her to all the women's meetings, carrying her bags. She was one of the female founders of the National Council of Women's Society in the then Eastern region. And I would always cry to follow her along to her meetings, carrying her bag and listening to all these women talking about what they could do to make life better for others. And that kind of made quite an impact on my personality all through. I think it helps, for instance, from my experience, it helps if there are a number of iconic figures in your life whom you consciously or unconsciously understudy, starting perhaps, of course, with the family, from the family. It helps, for instance, if you have parents who completely and utterly believe in you and your abilities, and that is in the education of women, for instance. At that time, it was that basic. It was that basic. For instance, from the age of 10, I remember I was told that I was having suitors already. But my parents would say always to them, this daughter of mine is going to speak at the UN one day, so please can you wait, give her a room. You know, so it's good to have those iconic figures, first from the family, then also from the school. Two of the female iconic figures that impacted on me, my life, were my teachers at secondary school. I literally worshipped them. One of them was late Mrs. Nwakama Okoro. Another was the late iconic author, Flora Nwapa. Now, I literally worshipped them because I was told that they had studied abroad and they're coming back and they are now teachers. She was, Nwakama Okoro, Mrs. Nwakama Okoro was my teacher in mathematics and Latin. And those kind of figures, along the way, always have iconic figures, people whom you don't want to disappoint. They could also be male. You could start perhaps with your husband or a brother who has made it completely and utterly. Understudy them and get close to them and ask questions along the way.
All right. So finally, how do you feel about our society today?
Oh dear, Tommy.
And your thoughts?
Yes, my thoughts. Yes, yes. One of the things that sometimes really depresses me, if you go back to my response to the first question and the strong sense of civic responsibility, which I seem to have developed, because I studied sociology and politics at the University of Sussex at a time when the social sciences were just coming into their own in academics. One of the big things that literally gave me sleepless nights is these reversals there seems to be. Huge reversals in progress and all the effort being made towards women's empowerment in Nigeria. All through the 80s, the 70s, the late 70s and 80s, while I was in academics, I was literally very active on what I call the gender beat. You know, everything that had to do with women. I became a life member of the National Council of Women's Society. I was very active in Her Excellency Mariam Babangida's Better Life for Rural Women. I was very active in the National Association of University Women. I was, in fact, I'm sometime the president of the branch in Owerri, and I met all the important women that were across Nigeria. I was also very active. Later on, I became the research coordinator here in Abuja of the National Research Coordinator for the National Council of Women's Societies. I have written so many papers, attended so many workshops. I was a very active member of the Nigerian delegation to the Beijing Platform of Action, the UN Conference on Women in 1995, and was there when the Platform for Action was crafted and written. But what do we have today? We have a kind of acquiescence to women being kidnapped, young girls being kidnapped from school by the hundreds, and they are not yet back, and we are still taking it as if we are accepting it as if it's a normal thing. We are living with it. The terrorists in Nigeria are capturing women right, left, and center, and even fighting over them. You know, it brings me to tears thinking about this. It seems to be like we take 2 steps forward and we take 10 backwards on the issue of women. So I think the UN recognizes this very much and keeps having conferences to revise and to review. For instance, there'll be one this year, and I'm happy that the theme for this year's International Women's Day is equality, generational equality. That is, all women of all generations should bring their hands together and be involved, because there seems to be a reversal. We are losing the gains that we have made in the past. And I'm so happy that the UN recognizes this, the loss, because of the heightening conflict and tensions that are ravaging many societies across the globe. Nigeria, of course, is one of them, one of those stages of terrible conflict. And you know, of course, that in situations of conflict, the women and the children are the primary victims. And in a patriarchal society where patriarchal values are still very much around, like Nigeria, this is likely to be, this is also the problem. So that is my main concern. I'm concerned about the future. I don't know what we can do this. It has now become an issue of governance. It's about governance, and governance involves men and women, young and old, and all generations, all professions have to have their hands on deck to solve this problem. And gender issues have to be completely mainstreamed, not taken in isolation. This is what I feel. I'm concerned about the future and the reversals we are experiencing. My experience, which I would like to all women who are aspiring to get to the peak of their careers to be wary of, is the fact that they should refuse to be intimidated. And when you get into a position, especially one that is perceived to be rather powerful in strongly patriarchal societies like Nigeria, you have to be ready for all kinds of things being used to bring you down, because they will feel, especially if you're the only female. I was the first and only female commissioner at ECOWAS, and I suffered all kinds of attacks because it was in a very powerful position, the position that was given to Nigeria, approving huge sums of money, appointing people in positions, and in fact 4 major directorates, arranging all the meetings, and then all the protocol for important visitors, to the point of blackmail being used. For instance, in my experience in that location, that position was having some fraudsters, 419 fraudster scammers, forging my signature and using my name to write all kinds of letters. And I would, in isolated cases, get letters, responses to those things, people who were now parading as Dr. ADAOHA. And I want all the women, but it didn't matter at all. It didn't affect me, it didn't hurt me. But what I need them to be wary of is to refuse to be intimidated, because the idea was to push me down and to make me give up on some of the strong decisions and very controversial decisions that I had to take in that position. So women have to be wary of this kind of threats and dangers when they get to the peak of their career. It comes mostly to them because they feel that it's a man who should be in that position. Thank you very much, sir.